Hey, good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. It is March 9th, 2022, and we are celebrating Women's History Month. And we have a phenomenal woman on stage. Hey, Abby, how you doing?
Hello. How is everybody?
Well, everybody as in me. I'm great. I'm doing amazing, ma'am. How about yourself?
I'm good. I just got home, so, checking the emails already.
Oh, I hear it. Man, so look, do you guys ever get a break in freight, or is that just non-existent?
No, I mean, you do. It's just depending on where your company is. So we're still kind of in the startup phase. So, we don't necessarily have people to do things for us all the time. So we're doing a lot of the things.
Right. You're creating. That makes sense. You're creating on the spot, aren't you?
Yeah, pretty much. I've been doing a lot of appointing of loads, building of loads. So it's a change for sure, but it's good to get a little more experience on the ops side.
Right. Okay. Well, look, for everybody who's been listening in to me for a while, I'm Jory Myers. I am the owner of Atlanta Dispatch. I love this industry so much that we went and built this whole platform just to support people who are in it, to highlight people who are in it. And tonight's discussion is regarding how to become a preferred carrier to a brokerage, a freight brokerage. And we have Abby. Abby, can you please introduce yourself and talk a little bit about your company?
Yeah, so my name is Abby Hafenbredl, and if you hear my dog in the background, he gets a little hyper during this time, so it's just my dog. So I am the VP of Sales at Sage Freight, and I'm also an investor, so partner, whatever you want to call it. So I have a little more skin in the game for my company, but we are a newer brokerage based out of Franklin, Tennessee, right outside of Nashville. And we're a newer brokerage, but we all worked together previously at another brokerage and built that up to 250 million. So we basically took our executive leadership team and started a new company. Mm-hmm. So we're going to be at our year in authority coming up in May, and the plan is to eventually get trailers. As you guys know, that's almost impossible right now unless you want to pay top of the market. So we're holding off, potentially looking at asset companies to acquire just to get some trucks and trailers under our belt. But for now, truly brokerage. And yeah.
Yeah, well, that's amazing. I didn't know everything, as far as, about Sage and it being about 1 year in authority and the fact that you were on that ownership team. Congratulations. That's awesome.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah,
I definitely wouldn't have. I mean, I moved back down from Chicago for this job, and I definitely wouldn't have left Chicago if I didn't believe in these people and the company that we're building. So it's pretty cool. It's a great feeling to have more purpose than just moving the marker. Before, it was a lot about the bottom line, and now we can really get back to the original company and our core values and all that good stuff that really makes the company great.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. I'm going to support you as much as possible. So even after we get off of this discussion, just please let me know what I can do. So, but I didn't know all of that. So I'm happy to promote, just like I said. So how long have you been in this industry?
Actually, April of 2016 is when I started at Calvary Logistics. And been in it ever since. So what is that, 7 years?
Yeah, that's so you got some skin in the game. You know what's going on.
A little bit, yeah. I definitely, like everybody else, I feel like accidentally fell into this industry, and I had no idea what logistics was when I started. So zero background before that, that's for sure.
But it seems like you're here to stay.
How do you leave?
Right. It's so exciting. There's so many moving pieces where you can grow and develop in other parts of the supply chain. I don't know how you can leave.
Yeah. And I'm still, one of my favorite things to do is just talk about transportation. And it's so nerdy, but I feel like it like gives me a high. Like I just got back from FoodShippers, and then I had a couple other networking events, and I've just been like on cloud nine. I don't know why. I just I love it.
Right. Well, how was FoodShippers? Because a lot of people from our networks, they were down there. How was it?
It was really good. It was my first time going, and my COO was basically, he was like tied to Craft's hip, so he doesn't like go around and network with anybody. They're just kind of like Craft's carriers, like on standby, if you want to say that. So I didn't know what to expect, because I'm an extroverted person, but if I don't really recognize anybody, I am a little introverted, like as far as going up to people first. And so I was like, oh man, I don't know, like, am I going to be scared to like go and talk to people? But oh my gosh, it was such a blast. I will say a lot of drinking goes down. Sketchy stuff that happened for sure. A carrier punched a shipper.
What?
Yeah, some good gossip for sure.
Oh, wow.
But I mean, that's what happens when you go 2 years without a FoodShippers event, and then you get like 1,500 people together and
open bar.
Yeah, basically till 3 in the morning every night. Whew.
Man, that is hilarious. A lot of juice down there. What was that, in Orlando?
Yeah, Orlando. Yep.
Man. All right, well, I think I have to make my way down there for next year. I was dropping little hints to people from my network who were down there. I was like, look, I have so many refrigerated box trucks that I dispatch for. I need dedicated opportunities. So
I know. And I keep bringing you up too. I'm like, oh, I got a reefer box truck guy in Atlanta. Do you have any local stuff? And it's like, oh man, no. I got some in Florida. I have some here. I have some here. And I'm like,
right.
One of these times we're gonna figure out the perfect situation.
Right. No, we definitely are. So yeah, well, I appreciate you doing that, and thank you for giving me a little bit more background on how you got into the industry. And essentially, I just wanted to talk about it because you've been in the game long enough to know what a carrier needs to do in order to become a preferred carrier from a freight brokerage. And you know the good things, the turnoffs, you've seen it all. So how important is it let me ask this a different way. What are some of the key things a carrier can do to become a preferred carrier?
I think some of the easiest things is just communication, honesty, and having some sort of a relationship where that we can trust you, that you're going to say what you're going to say, or you're going to do what you're going to say. It's really so simple. At the end of the day, we just need to know where the truck is so that we can give an update. On our end, we understand things happen all the time, and breakdowns happen. This happens, that happens. And the biggest thing for us is just give us enough information so that we can communicate that to our customer, and then provide whatever documentation you have. That's really, it's so simple, but there's so many drivers that it's, basically impossible to get any updates from the dispatcher or the driver. And at that point, it's like, well, now we just feel like you're lying because you're not being open and transparent. So now do we have to worry about this load? And, it's just so much extra energy that we put into tracking and tracing if we think something might be a little off. If you're a carrier and you just put us on MacroPoint, really, ideally, we don't even want to check on you, besides confirming that you're loaded and that you're unloaded with no OS&D. And then even after that, once you do a couple loads and we know that if something goes wrong, you'll reach out, we literally don't even have to talk to you at all through the load. And it can just be completely automatic. So, being a preferred carrier for us is just having that communication, and us knowing that if something is wrong or delayed, that the driver or the dispatcher will communicate to that as soon as they know about it, so that we can then communicate to the customer.
Right. No, I definitely hear you there. And that's part of my onboarding when I'm bringing on new carriers, whether they be, semis or box trucks. The fact is, there are some milestones that we have to communicate to the brokerage every single time, no matter what. And, outside of communicating those milestones, I don't think that the brokerage is too interested on anything. Let me know the ETA to the shipper. Let me know when you get to the shipper, and let me know when you're loaded. And if there's too much time in between you arriving to the shipper and them loading you, please let me know so I can then start working on detention or, get somebody to push it through. And again, the same exact things on the receiver side of things. Let me know your ETA to the receiver. Let me know when you arrive to the receiver, and let me know or send over that BOL when it's signed and, you're unloaded. Outside of that, I don't think that a brokerage really, wants too much interaction aside from, booking that next load. And, I've learned that is how I become, a preferred dispatcher to some of these brokerages out here, because that's very important to me, because, you make sure that the freight is getting from origin to destination. That track and trace team, you don't necessarily have to interact with them, nor do you want them to have to work hard to get updates. So I think I agree with that whole communication. Mm-hmm. If you're on top of your communication, things just flow smoothly from there. And you also said just being, just upfront about any delays or issues or anything. And that's true. That's very true. Who wants to play coy and not have the true information, especially to communicate to your customer when the truth's going to come out anyway. So you might as well be upfront in the beginning. And, we as a team work to get the load delivered, successfully, because that's the ultimate goal, is to deliver the load successfully. So, yeah, I agree with you 100%.
Mm-hmm. And I know there's a lot of brokerages out there that they're, let's just say, slimy, and they're going to tell the customer a lie no matter what. Mm-hmm. But there's honestly a lot of brokerages that don't do that. And yesterday told, I tell my customer exactly what the carrier tells me, because I'm not going to start a web of lies and then go back and remember, okay, wait, which lie I gave this customer? So, it's in an email. I just look and figure it out and then tell the customer. But when the carrier is lying to us on the front end, then we just look like crazy people, because we just had a load for Aldi, and it was going from McDonough, Georgia to Moreno Valley, California. And it was doing fine the whole time. They didn't MacroPoint, so of course we're like, but not everybody MacroPoints. It doesn't necessarily mean the load's going to go to crap. But they missed delivery like 4 times, and each time they gave us a different excuse. And then by the 3rd excuse that I had to communicate to Aldi, I was like, oh my gosh, now we just look like insane people. When in reality, they probably just railed the load. So if you guys would just tell me, like, hey, we put this on the rail, it's not going to hit on-time delivery, at least then I can be transparent with my customer and say, I didn't realize this was going to be railed. Here's what happened, done. It's expected to deliver at this point. Right. Or even if you don't need to necessarily tell them you found out it was on the rail, just giving them an actual, ETA for delivery so that they can plan their product and supply chain and figure out what stores this product is going to go to, Right. So that's huge.
Right. I mean, it sounds like you just want carriers to do what do exactly what they say they're going to do, so that, when you're speaking to your customer, everything is lining up and you don't have to go back with 30 excuses, which makes perfect sense. And earlier you said something that, it was some jargon, some industry jargon. You said that once delivery makes it to the receiver, we just want to make sure that there are no OS&Ds. What's that?
Oh, yeah. Overages, shortages, or damages.
Oh, okay. So what happens when you get an overage, a shortage, or some damage?
Well, usually, hopefully, the carrier will reach out to us right away while they're still at the shipper or at the receiver, so that we can fix anything like right then and there. But if we find out there's OS&D, then we just have to communicate that to the customer. And then, if there's damages or something, a lot of times the carrier will have to dump it somewhere. And sometimes customers will have their dumping, I forget what the proper term is. You know what I'm talking about. Their proper places nearby.
Right.
So yeah, we not necessarily as much right now, I would say. But at previous companies, we would always, when they get delivered, we would always ask any overages, shortages, or damages, just because sometimes drivers will not say anything and then turn in the paperwork, a couple days later, and then we'll be like, wait, what? Why didn't you let us know that you had...
That it was short, It was short. It was short, half the load.
Because now my customer's going to reach out back out a week later when they actually start going through the paperwork, or, maybe the warehouse will reach out and say, hey, did you guys realize this was short and we could have put another pallet of this on this? And, it just looks better for us to be a little more proactive on that end so that the customer likes us better. Honestly, it's less work for them. Instead of tracking us down, figuring out what happened, now we can handle it right then and there, take care of it, boom, and move on. Done.
Right. I completely understand you there. Just recently, I had one of those issues where I have a carrier on the load. The load is at the capacity of what they can legally carry. And we get to the shipper and we find out that what was actually communicated was the load of the actual goods, the product, but not the tear weight, not the weight of the actual equipment used to, safely transport. So the pallets and all the wrappings and all that kind of stuff added an additional 1,400 pounds. And, we eventually were found out that it was going to be overweight. Do you guys find that to be something that you see frequently, or do you think that was just a chance occasion or something like that?
I feel like most shippers weigh their product with pallets included, but yeah, we've definitely had instances where we've been overweight, and in those scenarios, we just have them go grab a scale ticket, send it in, and then we usually have them go right back to the shipper and take a pallet off, basically just short ship the product. But a lot of that takes so much time because, especially if you're dealing with food and beverage and grocery customer, by the time they get to the email and reply back and figure out what to do with the warehouse, could be sometimes 5-6 hours that a carrier might be sitting there.
That's exactly what it was for us. It was frozen salmon, and it took us forever, but we got it. The rate actually ended up being almost 2.5 times what the original rate was due to.
Oh wow!
Yeah, so I'm not mad.
There you go.
neither was the carrier, but so that was the situation. And I guess following up on that whole communication piece and tracking piece. Is there another tracking app that you guys use, or is it MacroPoint for the most part?
We have MacroPoint integrated to our TMS, so we usually go with that. But then, different customers have different requirements. So we do fork heights also, and we also have easy loader tracking. I don't know if you know that. It's basically just another ping. And then whatever other ones that the driver uses usually can sync up to our platform. So at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter, but MacroPoint I feel like is the most I don't know. What do you think? Is MacroPoint the easiest for drivers to get to accept, or what?
I would say I would say that MacroPoint is definitely the most common brand that I've worked with. They do have their pros and their cons. I just recently found out one con that, if once a driver gets to a location, it stops tracking. So, sometimes that becomes an issue if it's a multi-stop situation, or if what if they get there the day before, you know what I mean? And they need to leave to go do something else. They arrive early, but they need to go do something else in the meantime before being unloaded. So I saw some of the cons. The pros is just that is the brand recognition. Apparently it's easy. The drivers that I work with, they don't really have too many issues. Especially not the younger drivers. Sometimes, there might be a technology gap in some of my more seasoned drivers. I'm trying to be nice.
No, you don't have to be nice. They literally think like the government's going to track them if they accept MacroPoint.
It's tough. It's real tough sometimes. I'm like, I have to get so granular. Like, you need to accept this because it's a part of the requirements, So that's definitely a thing. But we also have, I want to say that it's easier when you can communicate to the driver in the language that they like to be communicated with. And when I say language, I'm kind of talking about the medium. And, so if somebody likes text messages, well, do the text messages. But, the whole having to download different apps, that becomes a hurdle. And I know we got one of our buddies to the stage, Eric. He's down there. He's the CEO and owner of VendorFlow. So that's something that kind of streamlines that process. So I did notice that being one of the issues with those seasoned drivers is if you had to download something, it just became a hurdle, like additional barriers. So,
100%.
Yeah. All right. So MacroPoint, 4 kites. I'm definitely used to those. The Easy Loader was a new one for me.
That's just kind of specific to our platform we use. So you probably would never have heard of it.
Okay.
But yeah, it's basically the same thing. It just creates actual checkpoints in our system.
Mm-hmm.
But just any sort of tracking, you got to realize that's just the time. So these drivers that refuse to accept, it's like, well, look at an Amazon package. It's literally the barcodes are encoded to tracking, and it's like if we can track a pair of, I have 2 Amazon packages sitting here, but if I can track a pair of flip-flops every 10 minutes or whatever, then we can track your freaking semi full of $100,000 of whatever, cargo.
Oh yeah, no doubt. Yeah, no doubt. So thanks for entertaining that portion. I did want to ask this. So if we're talking about these communication and honesty, transparency, those being the factors that lead to a carrier being a preferred carrier, what are those things that, would make somebody become unusable, put on the do not use list?
Obviously lying. Anytime I feel like our brokers are really good at not selling or promising a load to a carrier and then, we got a better option, so screw that. We'll go with a cheaper option or whatever.
The more profitable situation.
Yeah, I think that's a big pet peeve for me is when carriers just shop around and they'll tell you they're committed to a load, and so we put in committed in our side and take it down, and then an hour later or whatever, oh yeah, just kidding, we whatever excuse they want to say for basically they found a better paying load. But it's like, if you, like I said before, if you say you're going to do something, just do it. Otherwise you're going to get a bad taste in our mouth and vice versa, probably.
Right.
And then
go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, and not being, upfront with whatever requirements you have. And I only say that because we recently, well, right now, actually, we're trying to figure out what to do because we have a carrier who he signed our rate con, which has a standard TONU, industry standard TONU amount. Mm-hmm. And he said, a load got canceled, which if you're shipping food and beverage, that happens every other load, it feels like, just because the warehouses are having to restock product and things aren't ready. And, so it's very common that same day a load's going to get canceled and the driver may already be at the shipper. And it's, we reach out as soon as we hear from the customer, but we had a driver, load was canceled. He just assumed it was our fault. And we're like, no, dude, we this happens all the time. I'm sorry.
Right.
I wish it wasn't canceled also. We both are in a bad situation now. So I don't know what else you wanted to do. And anyway, he was asking for $400 TONU. And he's like, that's my standard. It's like, well, you probably should have told us to that on the front end because you already signed the rate con with our industry standard.
Right.
So we paid him what we owed him based on what he signed. And he just went off the deep end, and he's now written 6 or 7 one-star reviews on
oh man, dang.
on Google. And so my company's like, Abby, you need to figure out how to get around this, because he created new
accounts just to do this?
New accounts. And I was looking, it's so obvious, because if you look at each of these trucking companies, and we've called all the ones that we could find that are actually companies that he used, and they're like, we have no idea what this is. And he had with each quote unquote company that he left a review for, there was one or two other 1-star reviews for other companies, and then 1 5-star review for his company. It's like, dude.
Yeah, wow.
It's so obvious. But Google can't take them down because he's not technically breaking any violations besides impersonating, and they have no way to prove that he's actually impersonating. So
I hate that. I'm so sorry to hear that. Dang.
Yeah, and we even tried calling a removal place, and it's $1,000 per review you want taken down, and we're like, okay, well, we're not. That's just ridiculous. We're not going to let this guy completely ruin us. But we're newer. We only have 18 reviews, so 5 1-stars kind of messes us up.
Right, yeah, because that's the first thing people kind of see, is the fact that, what is their rating, what are the people saying about this organization? So, man, I'm so sorry to hear that.
Yeah.
Because people, if I find out how to get that undone, I'll definitely let you know, but that's so hard to even think about.
Yeah, but it puts it into perspective how, because let's be honest, brokers a lot of times will treat carriers like crap. Mm-hmm. So for us to as a company realize, okay, no matter what the situation is, we need to approach it as if they're going to leave us a 1-star review on the front end. Mm-hmm. So I think that's been good for us, honestly. We've probably taken a little bit of positivity out of it. Yeah. But it's true. We need to make sure it's a two-way street. We can't expect this sun and the moon if we're not giving that on our end as well.
Right. No, I agree. I mean, you brought up something, though, that I did deal with recently, which is, industry standard versus a brokerage standard. A brokerage had in their agreement that they were paying 20 $20 an hour for detention pay, maximum of 3 hours. And I said, what? I was like, look, that's not how it goes, player. You know what I mean? I had to break it down because the representative that I was speaking with, I can tell that they were new because, if that's the only thing you defend it like there's, no tomorrow. And I was like, hey, man, how long have you been in the industry? And they were like, I just started. I was like, you never worked for another corporation, have you, doing this? And they're like, no. I was like, look, man, this is not standard, okay? And because it's not standard, I'm telling you what my rate is. And, but that thing had to be discussed up front. And even with the TONU, I guess industry standard is 150, and I haven't had a reason to request more. But that is an interesting point. So if that guy would have said something ahead of time, would you guys have honored the fact that he was there, ready, capable, and willing to do the load, but he had a $400 minimum on the TONU? Do you think that you would have still used him?
Oh, yeah, for sure. If that was our best option, yeah. I mean,
okay.
Yeah, anytime, we'll do what we say we do. So we'll take care of our carriers as long as it was communicated on the front end. And we do a really good job of going back to make sure, well, hold on, what did you sell this as? Say we knew we were going to be a work-in at a shipper. Did we sell it as a strict appointment time, or did we sell it on the front end? Hey, FYI, this is the situation. We're not going to get detention. Do you still want this load? Or, whatever the scenario is. But yeah, I mean, to be honest, I don't think a broker should make money off of detention or TONUs. Maybe $100 for a TONU, but it all depends on what the customer pays. So, for example, Kraft versus Aldi. Aldi will pay us $100. So we will pay the carrier $150.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we're not going to pay anybody less than that.
Mm-hmm.
And this is just what Aldi is giving us. So this is what we will give out. We don't need to make money on that. Same with detention. Now you have a customer like Kraft. Well, they pay $400 for TONU or something like that. They pay a lot more. So then we're going to pay the carrier a lot more as well.
Okay, I got you. Well, that makes sense. I mean, and I feel like a great business practice of something like that. We don't know how many deadhead miles had to be eaten up to get to that place. So if there is more on the rate, being able to, provide more, I think that's pretty stellar of Sage Freight, if I do say so myself.
Well, yeah. I mean, right now we're kind of in the phase where the carriers need more than the customers. So
right, true.
We're doing what we can to make sure we have a good reputation for carriers. Customers will come. We have the relationships, we have the opportunities. That's fine. We don't necessarily, we can get as much freight as we want, but the carriers are the ones that we need to help us out because
without the carrier, I mean, a brokerage is only as strong as their carrier base.
Yep.
Yeah.
And once we get those preferred carriers that we don't have to worry about, oh my gosh, our life gets so much easier. It's less touches, less money, all that good stuff.
Yeah, I agree 100%. So let me ask you about that. So once you have your preferred carrier, is the rate more important, or is it getting the load secured and delivered successfully more important? Will you pay a higher wage to someone who is going to get the job done?
Oh, 100%. Yeah. Okay. I mean, we're moving a lot of freight already, and we don't have time to sit and look for, it's like opportunity costs. So if we know this carrier is good, he's might be even $400 more than another carrier, but we can trust that it's going to get pick and deliver on time. Absolutely. We try to go to our carriers first before posting loads up if we know, we have a guy that usually takes it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, all of our customers have KPIs and they have scorecards. So one late load is a really big deal for us. So if we continually work with bottom of the barrel carriers, we're not going to have a good look to our customer. And that means the most to us, is making sure we don't get kicked off of spot, or making sure our customers see us the way we would like to be seen, which is a reliable, good service broker,
Yeah. Let me ask this. Is Sage Freight friendly to dispatch services? And before you answer, just know this: as a dispatcher, owning a dispatch company, I got great relationships with a whole lot of brokerages, but some, they're like, soon as you say, well, I'm a dispatch service, they're like, the fear of God. I got to hang up. I can't, we can't work with your kind. And I'm like, what do you mean? So I asked that with that history, is Sage Freight friendly to dispatch services?
Oh, yeah, of course. Okay. I mean, so for some background, I worked previously at a brokerage, and then we got bought out by an asset-based company. So I had to deal with the terminals and those drivers quite often. Mm-hmm. And man, I mean, our preferred carriers would have updates on their loads hours before our own terminals would have updates on our own drivers. So I don't necessarily, it goes back to relationships and communication. Mm-hmm. And like, if we have a good relationship with a dispatch service that we know gives us timely updates and won't lie or give us a runaround, then yeah, of course.
Okay. No, I mean, that's fair enough. I just was asking because now that I know that you are VP of sales at this company, I think I'm going to be more inclined with, trying to move freight for you guys. But I just wanted to make sure I was going to get the warm welcome. Oh, yeah. So I can have all of my preferred carriers, moving your freight, because even the dispatch service has preferred carriers. I know who's going to do good. I know who's going to communicate well. I know who I'm going to have any type of, issues with additional services that might be required, or I know those things. So the people who, work, are very professional and communicate in a very timely fashion, well, guess what? I'm trying to get them top dollar for everything. Because they deserve it. They're the type of people, or they're the type of carriers that, makes the job of the brokerage a lot easier. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's like if everybody would just do their job the right way, supply chain would be so much easier. Things that actually, we're dealing with a bunch of meat loads crossing the border, and man, like today has just been a struggle. It's like anybody and everybody that's related to border crossing or today seems to not be doing their job and expects us to do everything. So we've had like 2 or 3 carriers. We do a lot of Canadian loads. We have had like 2 or 3 carriers that have been stuck at the border for like 2 days because everybody else didn't send or clear the shipment like they're supposed to. And it's like, come on,
man.
If everybody could just do what they're supposed to do, then we could do our job and we could just...
Wow, they didn't electronically send that form? What is that, the ACE form or something like that?
Yeah, there's like the commercial invoice and all that stuff. So usually the shipper will give it to the driver, and the driver or the broker will send it into the, wow, I can't think right now.
That's all good. No pressure.
Send it into the customs clearance broker, and then, they'll send back everything that is cleared and good. And we never had an issue. And today we just have had like 2 that they're like, oh no, we never got the paperwork. The driver's like, we never got paperwork. Like, okay, here. So we have to acquire the paperwork. Okay, here's paperwork. And then we find out shipper didn't send it to customs clearance. So then it's like, okay, this usually they send it for us. We've always cross border and we do 100 of these loads a week, but this time it's like, oh no, you guys need to send it yourself and do this and do this and do this, and I don't know. It's just like, what in the world? So I don't know.
I hear you. I definitely hear you there. I just got out of a class learning all of the that portion of international logistics. So shout out to Shaq of Agate Solutions. She's definitely a fan favorite over here. I appreciate her so much. She's been on the Transportation and Logistics Clubhouse maybe 3 or 4 times, and each time she breaks the stage. So shout out to Shaq. Actually, once I get off of this, I'm gonna see if her Dre Day class is still going on, which is her teaching folks how to get into drayage. Yeah. Do you guys work in drayage?
We will be.
Hey, I love
it. Yeah, actually I had a call with Southern companies and they want to partner with us. I honestly haven't really been selling Dre I haven't been selling a lot to be completely honest, but at my last company, drayage was a big focus. And so I got into it a little bit. We had 2,000 chassis and we had a bunch of dray equipment in yards near the ports, but here haven't focused too much on it. Gotten a few opportunities, but nothing too big.
No, I hear you. I definitely hear you. So look, I was going to be opening it up to the floor, or not the floor, to the audience to see if anyone had any questions. Did you have anything that you wanted to talk about specifically about either your company or, how does a carrier become a preferred carrier that we haven't already said?
I don't think so. I think we basically got the gist of it. I would say something that really helps us as a brokerage is, we used to have a saying on our end, work trucks, not loads, meaning always look to the future. So say you've done this lane for us a couple of times. Maybe our people aren't the best at saying okay, how many trucks do you have? Where do they need to go? What can we help you with on a weekly basis? More for the contractual freight instead of just spot transactional load and then the next load and the next load. So I really appreciate carriers that'll be yeah, so we actually, I'd love this load. We actually have trucks here every Monday and Thursday if you ever get this load again, or something like that. Because for me in sales, then I can go back to the customer and say, hey, we actually have a really good carrier that wants to do this every Monday and Thursday, and we can basically reverse sell back to the customer if we have a good carrier on literally any lane right now in this market. So that's always, I look at a carrier like that and think of a preferred carrier for sure, because, we're basically just trying to plan your trucks with my freight. And if it's a lane that works and the rate's good, and that's best case scenario for us. And then we don't have to track you as much because, we'll get into a routine. But yeah, that's the only other thing I would probably add to that.
Okay. All right. Well, look, hey guys, if anybody had any questions, please go ahead and start raising your hands. The fact that you talked about that, it did lead me to another question, which is, all right, times change. Something that was profitable last month might not be profitable on either side this month. How does, if you're getting into the type of situations where you have contracted lanes or dedicated lanes, I'm putting my air quotes up. How does that conversation go when fuel prices soar out of control like they're doing right now, and you were on something that was considered dedicated, and now you don't want to lock in for a year because you don't know what the market is going to do to all the other factors that might say whether or not something is profitable. So how does that conversation go, or how can a carrier have that conversation, with you so that, there's some flexibility in there?
Again, I would just say making those expectations clear on the front end. And for a carrier and a broker relationship, it's so easy to adjust rates whenever, you know what I mean? You might sign something to say yeah, we'll guarantee so many trucks. Sometimes brokerages will do that, but really it's just a relationship you have with your rep at the brokerage. So I would say if you're a carrier and the broker's like, hey, this is actually a contractual lane. We have this every 2 times a week for the next year. If you're interested in this, I would at least have the conversation and be like, well, depending on what the market does, we can take it at this rate for the next 2 months, and then we can revisit the rate. We'll have ownership as long as we're able to adjust the rate based on the market. Because us as being in sales and being on the brokerage side, I would have that conversation up front with my customer. Mm-hmm. So it just needs to all be, out and open that, okay, we'll agree to this rate for the next year in the expectation that if anything crazy happens, we'll have the opportunity to adjust our rate.
Okay. Have you had to kind of already go back to that type of conversation this week as fuel prices have gone so high?
We have not yet, just because we're doing a lot of spot. Mm-hmm. And anything contractual, we'll take a hit if we need to. So we're, a big thing with the broker and customer relationship is that we honor our commitments. But there's obviously scenarios where we may have to reach out and say, hey, this is what's going on. Is there any way we can get some more money? Like, say there's a storm, or say, something out of the ordinary causes this to be more expensive. Then I would go to data board. I'd go to whatever I need to do, provide some data like, hey, because this X, Y, and Z, we can't find a carrier, within a 250-mile radius unless we paid them the deadhead, and that's going to add an extra $1,000 to our rate. Is that okay? Mm-hmm. And in that scenario, obviously, we'd go back to the carrier and pay them whatever they would need. But yeah, there's definitely instances where, unfortunately, that's a risk we take as a brokerage. So the carrier really has they don't need to be loyal to a broker right now, because they can find any load they want. So, okay, that shouldn't be a hard conversation, because as long as you're working with a good brokerage, they know that. They know you can go and find any load if you're not, if you're not also giving them a rate increase and you're getting one from the customer. So.
Right. Okay. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Well, we did have one person raise their hand. They didn't come up. So at the end of the day, I just wanted to say thank you for your time and, being willing to come speak on the Transportation and Logistics Clubhouse. I am very, very, very excited for, the future of Sage Freight. I look forward to working with you guys. And, if there's did you want to say anything to close out the room?
Yeah, I don't think so. We would love to have some good carriers under our belt. We're a good company that we'll always take care of our carriers. And anytime, we're still small, and anytime I hear somebody even getting a little like sassy with the carrier, I'm like, well, you better watch out. Don't get too sassy. We're gonna get a 1-star review. So, so yeah, if anybody is interested in some freight, feel free to check us out. You can email me. My email is pretty easy. It's just Abby@Sage Freight. Otherwise, I think we have a carrier packet online and all that good stuff. And
you do. It's on RMIS, which makes things a lot smoother.
Perfect.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that.
Yeah, and we do Triumph Pay, so our carriers get paid right away as long as they submit their paperwork and all that jazz. The deal. Right. Now for a new brokerage, having the ability to pay something immediately is a game changer. Like, you don't even have to have the majority of the conversations because the carrier already knows they're going to get paid. So, but yeah. Yep. Yeah, so everybody check it out, sagefreight.com. And like she said, if you're a carrier, you have to have 90 days of active authority. And then you got to have the basics, your 1 mil and your 100 thou. So those are just the industry standards. So just reach out to them and hit her up, Abby@sagefreight.com. Yep.
Well, look, again, Abby, I appreciate you, ma'am. So reach out to me if there's anything we can do to partner on something coming up anytime soon.
For sure. Yeah. Hey, I was going to ask you, have you ever been to Modex? It's like a trade show in Atlanta.
No, but I think I'm going.
Yeah.
Okay.
I just found out about it. One of my brokerage friends, he's from Spot Freight, but he's like, you need to go to this. It's free. And so I looked at it and I was like, okay. They do a lot of like AI stuff, it looks like, some like robotic stuff, some warehousing. I don't know, it looks pretty interesting. And get this, freaking Shaq is speaking.
Oh, not Shaq. Wow. I've been waiting to meet this brother. Man, this guy makes me smile. I can't lie.
So I was like, okay, I feel like I need to go just because Shaq is going to be a speaker. Like, how the heck is this free? And Shaq, and also Sanjay Gupta. So, like, yeah, I guess that's a big deal, too. But
wow. Man, we got some big names.
I know. So, I don't know. I'm thinking about making the trip down to Atlanta. I think it's the 28th through the 31st.
Yeah, it is. I'm looking at it right now. I'm about to sign up. I appreciate you for even mentioning this. I'm signing up right now.
Well, I registered because I'm like, surely this isn't free. And then sure enough, it's just like, okay, you're registered. It's like,
register today for free admission. Sign me up.
All right. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So yeah, I might see you there. I'm going to try to come down.
Okay. Yeah, cool. I would love that. Well, you got my number, so holla at me. And I'm definitely going, though, at least one of the days. So I guess I got to pick the day that Shaq's going to be a speaker, because that brother's a part of everything. I don't know if you know this. This man is a part of so many different organizations that has so many different companies. It's impossible. He's doing all this stuff. So
yeah, I heard he's running a Papa John's.
Yeah. He has one right by Georgia Tech's campus. He had the historic icon of the Krispy Kreme location. Unfortunately, it did kind of burn down last year. So I think they're building it back up right now. But yeah. Thank you for mentioning that. I appreciate that.
Yeah. I don't know. I've never heard of it. So I was like, oh man.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, well, everybody, thank you for tuning in as always. And next week, we are going to be highlighting vendor flow. So excited about that. If you have any questions in the meantime, you know where to reach me. You know how to hit me up. It's all good. And check us out on Monday as we partner with FreightWaves, their sonar team. Outside of that, thank you again, Abby. You have a blessed evening.
Awesome. Thanks, Jory.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Yes, ma'am. All right now.
Bye.
Bye.